Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
It's Tuesday, August 26th. Glad you're with us here on the SportsIQ. Larry Smith here with you with another great show on the way in just a couple of minutes. Peter Holland is going to join us talking Florida State football. And a bit later, Cole Thompson of SEC Unfiltered. We'll get his thoughts. We love getting his thoughts on college football and the SEC in particular. Get his thoughts on the SEC going to a 9-game conference schedule starting next year. And also we'll talk about this weekend's big games. We have some great matchups. So lots of college football to come here. It's a very busy week, as you can imagine, getting ready here, week one of the new season. Let's get to a couple of headlines, though, very quickly. Starting in Major League Baseball, and Cal Raleigh doing it again. 50th home run. He's the 8th player to do that in the month of August. He gets there. The Seattle catcher joining Mickey Mantle, the legend, as the only switch hitters to hit 50 in a season, extends his record most home runs ever in a single season by a catcher. And by the way, he's the second Mariner to do it. Ken Griffey Jr. hitting 50-plus in 96 and again in 97. By the way, Seattle beat San Diego 9-6 in that. Some NFL news right now. The Bengals finally coming to an agreement of sorts with Trey Hendrickson. It's not the long-term deal that he wanted, but boy, did he get in this, a $14 million raise for the season. So instead of making $16 million in 2025, he'll make $30 million. It includes some bonuses. And then he becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2026. The 30-year-old is one of the best in the game, 4-time Pro Bowler, NFL sack leader in 2024, 17.5, and again, $30 million. The Bengals get him under contract for this year. Some quarterback news, including involving a couple of former starters. Cleveland trading Kenny Pickett to the Raiders for a 2026 pick, a fifth-rounder, actually. The former first-round pick in 2022 by Pittsburgh. He backed up Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia last year, so he's got a ring. And now he'll be behind Geno Smith in Las Vegas. Of course, Aiden O'Connell, the former Purdue quarterback, going down with an injury with that fracture. And so they need somebody to back up the veteran Smith, and Pickett is the guy. The Giants cutting Tommy DeVito. Tommy Cutlets, 12 games played for the New Jersey native, also 8 starts. Became a fan favorite there, although not a lot of success with the Giants over the past couple of years. But DeVito, the odd man out with Russell Wilson, Jameis Wilson, and first-round pick Jackson Darts now in town. Venus Williams losing last night in 3 sets at the opening match at the U.S. Open. But boy, the 45-year-old, all smiles later, 2-time U.S. Open champion, getting a standing ovation there at Arthur Ashe Stadium. It was really fun to watch her go out there and compete, even though she didn't come out with a victory. Venus, beset by injuries and illness in recent years, and the legend actually teared up in her post-match news conference when talking about her journey afterwards. That's the 4th singles match in her comeback this year. We are thrilled for Venus. As we said before, college football is here. Excited that great game this weekend over in Dublin. That was exciting. This is officially now week 1, and one of the bigger games has Alabama taking on Florida State down in Tallahassee. The Crimson Tide ranked 8th in the nation. Florida State, of course, coming off that season last year. But boy, as you know here in the show, so many people talking about the Seminoles, that was a one-off, expecting big things from Florida State this year. Joining us once again, Peter Holland Jr. He is covers the Seminoles for the Tallahassee News Democrat. Peter, welcome back to the show here. We were talking in the break about, and as I just said just now, that again, there's been a lot of the people around the country, college football writers, like yourself, are suddenly bullish on the Seminoles. What's the feeling there in Tallahassee?
Well, you can pinpoint any storyline going into the FSU Alabama game, and generally speaking, you can make a big point. Like for starters, Mike Norvell, he's not looking to go another disappointing season like last year. He made sudden changes by adding Gus Malzahn and Tony White as his coordinators. He added Tommy Castellanos to be his quarterback. It's a whole new offense, whole new defense, it's a whole new group. It's a whole new team. At least on the Alabama side, the storyline is that this is Kalen DeBoer's second year. Can he top up better than what he did last year? I'm sure there's high expectations there. And then with the quarterback situation there, you got Ty Simpson, who's going to be a first-year starter, but he's been with the program for the last 3 years. So we're pretty much seeing a whole new group of team from either side, which we really don't know what to expect. Some will say that Alabama will be the high favorites, and rightfully so. They're number 8 in the country. And Florida, and as for Florida State, they come from a 2-10 season, so you would expect them that they're not going to be not as good, or maybe not even better than what they were last year, or if they do, that they're still not in this superior as Alabama. So there's a lot of storylines going into the game. I think it's definitely going to be good, and it's also a good little matchup when it comes to SEC ACC play. And if upsets do happen, so you never know what could transpire. So it's definitely a good build up for sure.
Yeah, a couple of legacy programs, really not that far apart, just a few hours drive between the two campuses, Tuscaloosa, and then, of course, down in Tallahassee. So we're coming out of summer camp right now, or preseason camp. What's the vibe there among the Florida State program? They feel like that they're ready for this. It sounds like that Mike Norvell said, listen, 2024 is 2024. We're going to just lock that away in a vault and not think about it and move forward. How did things go here during camp in August?
Well, there's a lot of urgency. That's pretty much how I can probably describe it. Mike Norvell pretty much told us from day one that he really described or probably wanted to see the identity of the team being that there's players with a lot of edge on them, including himself. He knows that 2-10, he didn't plan on having a season like that. He knows that this is not what's supposed to, especially the year before you went 13-1, now you dropped to 2-10. Some of the players who were part of that team, they feel like they have something to prove. And obviously the players that Mike Norvell brought in, they feel like they have something to prove. Like I mentioned Tommy Castellanos, remember he got benched at Boston College. So obviously there's something that he needs to focus on. Deuce Robinson, who came from USC, they expect him to be a superstar wide receiver. He has something to prove because he hasn't really shown it in his first 2 years at USC. The offensive line was one of the worst, if not the worst. They brought in 4 established offensive line, 3 of them that came from the SEC. They feel like they have something to prove. Running backs, they had the worst running game in all of college football. There's a lot of edge going into that. And even on the defensive side, new defensive coordinator, new scheme. I'm sure Tony White probably end of the year could be a head coach after this, but chose to come here. He probably has something to prove along with all the defensive players that go along with them. So there's just a lot of edge and a lot of urgency going in this game because they're not looking to go 2-10. Mike Norvell made all the proper adjustments to know that they should be in an improved team. How they're going to improve, we're going to have to see. But this is really, you can just see the level of urgency throughout the offseason in general, that they're not going to go 2-10 again. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, when you've got a coach who is at a power conference program like Florida State, winning 13 games, you don't become a bad coach overnight, right? I mean, it's so you had all the other things that had to have happened, right, to make this happen. My question for you is, and I don't know if you had the answer, and it's not an accusation, it's an honest question. Was last year kind of the worst of what we might see in the NIL era in terms of guys coming in almost as hired mercenaries, kind of playing for themselves or playing for the money, and maybe there wasn't a culture in place that they adhered to that you see in other places? I mean, is there kind of a one factor that we can? Did that happen last year? Is that what happened in 2024?
I don't know if I can look at it that way. I'm not really sure about that. If they got money, so they don't really care. I don't think that plays the factor at all. I just think that they were just a naturally bad team as an all. So they were really invested with DJ Ungalele when he came here, and he had NILs before he even came to FSU. So the problem is that he was not good, and also the offense was not good. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't. The offensive line, they had to change their starting lineup every game. They had no receivers. Their defense was inconsistent.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a money thing. That is a simple, they couldn't execute. And it's a symbol of bad coaching all around, where that leads to Mike Norvell making all these changes.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if there was a money playing a factor, because you really have, if you're really invested in getting all these guys or playing these guys, you just hoping that the players will live up to that hype. That was not the case here. It was just simply that Mike Norvell really thought that he was going to pick up the momentum and bring in a couple guys that was going to build up to what the roster that they had now. It was more of the players who were returning didn't really live up to his expectations. It was just a complete disappointment from the guys that came back from that team that was part of that roster that went to the world, that had that 13 wins. But when they came back, they were just a complete disappointment. They just did not live up to the expectation, and it was just an all-around bad team.
Yeah. Well, luckily, 2025 is here, and after Saturday, we can talk about something else instead of 2024. So they're taking on number 8 Alabama. They're at Dirk Walker. Do they have the renovations to the stadium done yet? Is it back to full capacity, or what's the?
Well, as of right now, last I checked, they painted the field, so it looks like they're pretty much ready to go. From what I've seen.
Okay. Yeah. One of my favorite places to watch a game. It's been years since I was there. The Bowden era was always a lot of fun, and a great atmosphere down there. Talking with Peter Holland Jr., once again, the Tallahassee News Democrat, getting ready for Florida State hosting number 8 Alabama. Let's talk about the Crimson Tide. You mentioned some changes there. They've got like you said, a guy at quarterback. Jalen Milroe was gone. A new player coming into place. Is that where you see that the Tide are vulnerable, where the Seminoles can come in and maybe take advantage and get a win and shock the world here in week 1?
Well, the way that I look at it is that Alabama's they're always going to produce talent, and they always are going to be prepared, and they're always going to be well coached. It doesn't matter if it's from Nick Saban or Kalen DeBoer. The standard has always been their standard. And one of their biggest standard is what they look up front. That's the key of any football team, is definitely the major key for Alabama. So they returned 3 of their 5 starters. One of them is a projected first-round draft pick, Kalen Proctor. So even if you're someone like a Type Simpson who doesn't have that much starting experience, that you will hope that the defensive line can get to him or pressure him. But it's going to be hard to do, though. That's easier said than done when you're going against that offensive line like Alabama has. So I think it's really going to come down to that. Same goes for the running game. They lost their starting running back as well, Jam Miller. That's a huge blow for them. But Alabama has also been active in the transfer portal as well, where they are just looking for guys who could step up or who could be that centerpiece for that offense and defense, to see what this new group can look like. Because again, this is a new group of Alabama team just as much as there's a new group of Florida State. So I don't really know what to expect. Yeah. But as far as what Time Simpson goes, that he's been with the program all 3 years. He knows what a winning team looks like. He knows what is expected from him. But they're not asking him to do too much, but you don't expect him to do too little either.
Yeah, you mentioned, of course, Gus Malzahn coming on to take over the offense. What changes do you expect that he will make with this Florida State offense?
Running the football. That is the MO for Gus Malzahn. That's why you brought in Tommy Castellanos, because he is a running quarterback. He's a playmaker when the ball is in his hands. So you've seen it. You've seen it from when he's the head coach at UCF. You've seen him when it's Auburn, that led him to win a national championship with Cam Newton. You expect the same with Tommy Castellanos, because one, he recruited him when he was at UCF and he was a freshman. And now, because he knows that offense inside it out, that you would expect that the running game will improve. You're not going to go 2.5 yards to carry again. That's what I'm going to say, that for sure. So that's what you're going to expect. And you can hope that it's going to open up the offense with your 2 vertical receivers that you brought in with Deuce Robinson, with Squirrel White, who they brought from Tennessee. They got a couple freshmen that could be really good for them. One is a running back named Usman Kroma, who's from Lee County, and Javen Boggs, who's the wide receiver. those two freshmen could be very, very impactful, and definitely. And the reason why they came to FSU is because they want to play in that Gus Malzahn system. So
Wow.
you see a little bit of the impact of what Gus Malzahn brings to that offense, being that he's the play caller. Mike Norvell is taking a step back from play calling duties. They both had that relationship because the last time they were together, it was back in Tulsa. And people will remember back in Tulsa had the number one offense, and nobody even know what Tulsa was. And that was like the beginning of the no huddle tempo offense that Gus Malzahn put together that no one was familiar with. He had the 1,000-yard rusher. He had a 5,000-yard passer. He had 2,000-yard receivers. They're hoping that you can see something like that. So that's pretty much what you will hope that the Gus Malzahn. You just hope that is going to be the explosive offense that we have not seen in quite some time.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a year ago when Florida State went over to Ireland, was upset by Georgia Tech, and it began the train wreck of 2024. It could very easily be just the opposite here. Getting a win on Saturday over the Tide, again, currently coming in number 8. You've got 3 winnable games before you've got the game against Miami coming up to start October. The Hurricanes currently ranked 10th. All of a sudden, that could be, a couple of undefeated teams right there, potentially both in the top 10. And all of a sudden, we're talking about all the good things now with the Garnet and Gold.
Sure, for sure. That is another way of just saying that they're not going to go 2-10 again. That's
we know,
if you lose to East Texas A&M and Kent State and go 0-3, I mean, assuming they lose to Alabama, then somebody's getting fired right off the spot. But in all seriously, having those two to go along with after the Alabama game, it definitely boosts the confidence. It also just helps you just create more chemistry and get more comfortable with the new system that is in play. And also that you just mentioned about Miami. I just think that outside of the Miami Clemson game, I don't see why Florida State cannot go toe-to-toe or win some of the games that was in front of them. Virginia, that's a Friday night game. It's at Virginia. Virginia's dealing with their own issues. You got Pittsburgh. I wouldn't sleep on Pittsburgh. I mean, Desmond, they got a really good guy. I mean, I think his name is Desmond Lewis, I believe his name is. He's a playmaker. But other than that, I think it's a winnable game. Stanford, I mean, they just lost to Hawaii. What does that tell you? And they don't have a head coach. Wake Forest, that's also a wide open. That should be a game that's a winnable game as well. And that's all of that before you get to Clemson, at Clemson. So that alone itself, the way that pretty much just shows how bad the ACC is, but it also showed that Florida State, you should expect them to be better than what they were last year, just because the schedule dictate that. Because the only tough opponents that you got in your schedule is Alabama, Florida, Miami, and Clemson. So anything else is fair game.
Yeah. Nope. I totally agree. But the great thing is, like you said, we now can stop talking about 2024 in college football because it is here. Week 1 this weekend, 3:30 Eastern time kick on ABC. It is Florida State hosting 8th-ranked Alabama. Peter, always great to talk with you. We will be envious because you'll be there in the house. We'll be watching on TV. Have fun this weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Appreciate your insights. Once again, Peter Holland Jr. He covers the Seminoles, Florida State football for the Tallahassee News Democrat. He's been on the show before, and so we really enjoy having his insights, looking into this program as a very proud legacy Florida State program was to turn things around from 2024, and they could take a quantum leap in doing that with a win over 8th-ranked Alabama. We've seen it before. Like I said, we saw it just last year with this team on the other way. Let's see if they can turn the tables here. Okay, we've got much more to come. It's the Sports IQ. Stay with us.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Man, love talking with Peter there. By the way, Peter reminded me in the break, it is the Tallahassee Democrat, not Tallahassee News Democrat. Looked that up very quickly. There are some News Democrat papers, I think, in Ohio, and there's one in Kentucky, but not in Tallahassee. I don't know where I got that. That's my bad, and I own it. The Tallahassee Democrat. I will now never forget. Stay with us in a couple of minutes here. Cole Thompson joins us with the SEC Unfiltered. Great show tomorrow. Kevin Noon joins us from BuckeyeHuddle.com. The defending champion Ohio State Buckeyes taking on Texas, as we just talked about, coming up here on Saturday. We'll get Kevin's thoughts, friend of the show. Good to talk with him. Actually, know Kevin back from my CNN days. He was an intern way back then. That's how far back we go. And then Chris Blair, who is the voice of the LSU Tigers, also joining us tomorrow, talking about the matchup of Tigers at Clemson. LSU Clemson top 10 matchup, one of the games that we cannot wait to watch it this week. Lots coming up. We'll talk. We've got insiders from Alabama, also Clemson as well on the way later on this week, and more. Texas. Boy, it's a busy week here on the Sports IQ. Hey, quick story in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark, she's been injured, out most of the year with injuries. Really too bad. Many people thought she might be an MVP candidate. Hasn't gone her way. That groin injury has really been something. Another ankle injury then. It's just been a tough sophomore year for last year's Rookie of the Year. But huge off-the-court news for Caitlin. New logo and signature shoe line with Nike to debut in 2026. Of course, Caitlin signed that record $28 million endorsement deal last year. By the way, it's a new interlocking CC logo. You'll find them on T-shirts starting next week. So if you're a Caitlin fan and you've already bought her jersey, still one of the top selling jerseys in the league, despite being injured most of the season, more Caitlin to come. Shoe line next year, T-shirts next week. No sign of her return, by the way, from that injury, as Indiana hosts Seattle tonight. Also, Phoenix is at LA, but the Indiana Fever right now tied for 7th in the league and trying to hang on in the playoff chase here with less than 3 weeks to go in the rest of the season. Last night, Brianna Stewart returned after a 13-game absence due to a bone bruise. 19 points to lift New York past Connecticut, 81-79. Jonquel Jones, 18 points, 11 boards. Las Vegas clinching a playoff spot with its 11th straight win, 79-74 over Chicago in the Windy City. Jackie Young, 22 points. Asia Wilson added 18. Major League Baseball, Angels manager Ron Washington revealing that he underwent quadruple bypass heart surgery back in June. Wash hopes to return next season and manage the team in 2026, says he should be recovered by December. The 73-year-old, who is the oldest manager in the game, and boy, he's a baseball lifer. Long time Oakland A, been around in California a lot in baseball, says he has quit smoking and he eats better since having all this. Had some issues back in June at the end of the series with the Yankees. Flew back to California, wound up in the hospital, surgery a week later, and we hear now a couple months later what happened. And, of course, we do wish Ron Washington the best. He is a true baseball dude. Crazy situation, crazy scene on the field in St. Louis. The Cardinals first baseman Wilson Contreras ejected for arguing with an ump over a called third strike. In all this, threw his bats, and which actually hit one of his coaches instead of, it appeared, the first base umpire. He said he apologized later. The manager also ejected. Kind of a crazy scene there in St. Louis, but the Cardinals do get the win in the end, 7-6. So they got the final score. By the way, Boston and the Yankees keep pace with AL East frontrunner Toronto. All three winners Monday on the field. Okay, stay with us right here. A quick timeout, and Cole Thompson from SEC Unfiltered joins us next.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Cole Thompson is one of the great voices of college sports. He's with SEC Unfiltered, and we've had the pleasure of talking to him several times over the years, and always entertaining. We always come away like learning something we didn't know before. So if you get a chance to run across anything SEC Unfiltered that you to read that he wrote, or to hear or watch what he says, take the time to do it, because it's time well spent. Cole joins us now here on Sports IQ. Cole, good to see you again. It's that time of year. It's back, baby.
It's the time of year where you never know what time you're actually going to sleep. You never know what time the games are being played. You think that you're awake when actually you're drooling off into the sunset. And we're all just prepared for college football to be back on our television screens nonstop. That is what we get to have, Larry. We get to start it on Thursday night. We get to go all the way into Sunday. And just because of Bill Belichick could not stomach having to share the spotlight with somebody else, we get a Monday Night Football game out in Chapel Hill for the start of the Belichick era.
And so it begins, right?
And so it begins.
Exactly. You're exactly right. I want to talk first about the big announcement last week. Something I had begun to kind of convince myself this would never happen. The SEC going to a 9-game schedule, and also the mandate that teams must play another power conference, non-conference foe as well. What was your reaction? Were you surprised? And what do you think the ramifications will be?
My reaction was, all it took was Kirk Cignetti in Indiana to make a harsh reality comment about the SEC for them to change schedules. How weak are we, Greg Sankey, that we're going to let Greg Sankey decide these things for you? I mean, Kirk Cignetti decide these things for you. Me personally, there had got to be some ramifications in place that allow the SEC not to be penalized, because Larry, I agree that there needs to be a 9-game schedule. I've been very much a proponent of that for quite some time, and I think that there's value in playing those 9 conference games. And even as an SEC supporter going to an SEC college, I can understand the frustrations from the Big Ten and from the Big 12 and the ACC when you talk about they're playing that marquee matchup into Week 11 or Week 12, and they're going into their rivalry game. And you have Alabama playing Mercer, or you have Kentucky playing FCS Moorhead College, University of the Deaf and Blind. Like, I understand that. There's certainly some frustrations when it comes to that. But at the same time, I don't think that Greg Sankey would have made this move without knowing that his conference is not going to be penalized for going 9-3 or going into that 10-2 range where they're going to get the most representation. They're also talking about the new college football playoff model when we expand from 12 to 14 or 16 or whatever the number is in 2026. And the conversation has been the 5-11 versus the automatic qualifiers. Now, in the 5-11 model, you get one conference champion automatically in, and then 7 at-large, the 11 at-large bids. I don't think enough people realize that if the SEC plays a 9-conference game schedule and then the required Power 4 game, some of which are already baked in, Georgia versus Georgia Tech, Clemson versus South Carolina, Florida versus Florida State, those schools are going to be rewarded over a 9-3 Big Ten roster, because the Big Ten doesn't implement 2 things. They don't implement that Power 4 matchup, and they don't implement where your scheduled games have to be played. So you can start off the year facing off against, say, Ohio State versus Texas. We can close the year off going the same pathway as an SEC school facing off against Moorhead College to prepare for that Michigan game. Now that you're taking that game out for the SEC, they're going to be properly represented because they're going to have a much more rigorous schedule. And it's backed up by the ESPN FPI rankings. It's based off by the strength of schedule metric, the strength of records, conference records. Some teams are going to end up benefiting by getting an extra win to the column. Some teams are going to be hindered by getting an extra loss to the column. But regardless, I don't think this deal got done without Greg Sankey basically coming out and saying, I will make sure that my conference plays 9 games if you guarantee that we are the most represented and we are not penalized. A lot of schools are going to be complaining, I think, this time next year when you see those 9-3 rosters make the college football playoff, but they're not coming from the Big Ten, or they're not coming from the ACC, or they're not coming from the Big 12. They're coming from the SEC because they decided to bend the knee to the world of the NCAA, and they were rewarded for it. But the bottom line, in my opinion, Larry, is this is just more proof that we didn't need a 12-team college football playoff. We didn't need 16-team college football playoff. Money and greed has taken over this sport more so than anyone else, and more complaining is only going to continue to happen. So wash, rinse, repeat. You got what you wanted, ACC, Big 12, and Big 10 fans. Now you're going to be punished because of what you wanted, and also the only person to blame is you.
Yeah. Because now, to your point, now there is nobody unless, Big 10, ACC, Big 12, unless you go out and you mandate the same thing, no one else will have a guaranteed 10 Power 4 conference opponents in conference and out of conference on their schedule. Now, I'm with you. I do agree that I think once you expand to 16, 18 teams, you need to play at least half the, it's I go back to the Big East 20 years ago when they expanded to whatever it was then. It was 16. It was ungodly number, but they played the same number of opponents. And there was the first year of that, Syracuse went 10-6. They played Brown twice out of conference because of the unbalanced schedule. They only played the big boys once. They didn't have the resume of other teams. And I'll never forget Jim Boeheim complaining that he didn't get an at-large bid to the tournament. It's like, well, yeah, but you didn't play anybody. Now basketball's different because football, but to your point, I'm glad he did it. I'm glad it's there so that our argument's now over. And to your point, now they put the ball in the other conference's court and say, well, match this and go out and play. Make sure you're playing somebody outside of conference.
I think the other thing is that right now, when it comes to the SEC, it'll give you an opportunity to kind of really end the narrative about what people believe of your conference. And I don't think that that's entirely their fault. People will always come up with their own opinions on how they view teams and what they view of. Well, if you had X team in here, that's why the games are played. Right. But the games are played also because of the games are played in between the trenches. And when you look in between the trenches, the SEC every single year has a top 15 matchup every single Saturday. And you don't always see that in the Big Ten. And you don't always see that in the ACC. Now, I'm a college football purist. I will defend the conference because of I have loyalty and allegiance, and they write my paycheck, and there's a reason why I get a lot of money. So, I will defend the SEC when possible, but I also enjoy college football. I'm not saying that the SEC needs to turn into this mecca of only representation in the postseason picture, and we get one at-large bid from the ACC and one at-large bid from the Big 12 because they don't play as rigorous of a schedule. What I will say is that if you continuously ask the SEC to do more, you're going to have to reward them for doing more. And you want to have them play within your parameters, because if they can just be the salty kid that was picked last in football, but brought the football, picked it up and went home and do their own thing with the online football game and create a super league. And they can say to the Big 12, that's really cute that you think that you deserve as many teams as we do. That's really cute, ACC, that you deserve as many teams as we do. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the schools that are the most profitable in 2031 when we end up getting new contract negotiations and they can get out of their current media rights deal. We're going to bring them onto our league. We're going to call Tony Petitti, who at least understands the value of what is the Big Ten and the SEC rivalry with each other. We're going to create this thing called a super league. The sponsors that actually don't want to sign on with the television markets, they want to sign on with the programs. We're going to take them too. And then you and the ACC can have your little tidbit about which conference is best in the eyes of the NCAA. Because we kind of said, screw the NCAA. We're going to create our own thing. And we don't really care what happens to the rest of you and the rest of college athletics. So it's like you kind of want the SEC to get this pass if you are other conferences, not because of it's unfair to you, but because of what would you rather have? Fans start viewing you as an FCS program that you got to buy ESPN Plus or other streaming platforms for just to watch your games, or them get more representation. Maybe you get 2 or 3 teams in at most 1 year, but at least you stay together under the parameters of the NCAA.
Yeah. Do you think that takes another direction? Do you think that we'll wind up in the next decade with the super conference for TV?
That's challenging. That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I think what's going to have to happen.
Speculation, right? I mean, obviously, yeah.
Well, what's going to have to happen is we're going to have results from the College Football Playoff Committee. We're going to have results from the on-field games. I truly believe that Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey will work out a deal this offseason where they will have a Big Ten versus SEC challenge, just like we get in college basketball, whether it be the Big 12 versus the SEC or the ACC versus the Big Ten. We'll get that in football. That way, each team is able to get that representative matchup. But the other thing is, let's say that we go to the 5-11 model and you're down to 2 teams left regarding their strength of schedule, their strength of record, the conference wins, the number of ranked victories, and you're looking at them side by side. What you can use is that measuring stick of, well, we have the head-to-head matchups of the SEC versus the Big Ten. Whoever won more games is going to get that one extra team in. But let's say one year that the SEC does only get 5 teams in, even though that they had a tougher strength of schedule and they had a tougher strength of record and they had a tougher strength of conference and they had 5 or 6 teams each finished with at least 4+ wins against top 25 ranked opponents. And they're penalized because of they lost to, say, Penn State out of conference. And now the Big Ten gets 6 teams in. And the ACC, because if they only had 2 ranked teams throughout the entire year that ran through the table, they get both in, and the Big 12 gets 3 teams in because it was a special season. At that point, I could see where Greg Sankey goes, why did we have to bend the knee for you in so many different avenues, in so many different areas, to where now we're being punished for it? Now we're going to make the phone call over to the boosters. We're going to make the phone call over to the media rights people, and we're going to create our own Super League. That I could see, but we're going to need the factual evidence of that being a thing that happens, and we're not going to get that for the next several years.
Yeah, and that's fair. We're just 1 year into this new world, the college football expanded playoff, and then like you said, we'll see here in December what direction they're going to go in. You mentioned before about Texas, Ohio State. I love this. Obviously, this game was on the books years ago, but Texas #1 at #3 Ohio State, the defending champion. Is there no better way to kick off Week 1 than to have them on Fox, noon Eastern time, with everybody watching?
I mean, well, Dave Portnoy is not going to be able to watch the game, but we'll get on that. We'll get on that on a different level. That's why it's also the beauty of college football. I'm not going to lie. I heard the report. I've talked to some people. I won't relay all the information. Let's just say that this does have a lot to do with the animosity between Michigan and Ohio State. And the fact of the matter is, you got to appreciate that. You got to appreciate the pettiness of Ross Bjork. You got to appreciate the pettiness of Ohio State. This is why we love college football. I will push back and say that this is a great game. To me, though, this doesn't have the same type of ambiance as in years past because of the 12-team college football playoff. Now, I'm not saying I won't enjoy the matchup. I'm not saying that this won't end up being one of the better games of Week 1 and that we could see an upset happen in Columbus where #1 is an underdog and yet they still find a way to win. Never heard that before, but there's always something new in 2025 in college football. But to me, the game that has the most parameters towards the postseason picture is the one that night, Clemson versus LSU. That to me is where you could see we get into the month of November and Clemson is looking down the barrel. They have to win out. They have to not only win out, they also have to win the ACC to guarantee their spot in the playoff. Or LSU at this point, they have to march into Tuscaloosa. They have to get a win over Alabama. They can't afford to lose on the road in Norman because of the fact of just what the SEC schedule is. That first loss really does carry a lot of weight for both of these programs in different directions. Because again, if you look at it from the perspective of Clemson, Clemson right now wants to prove it's a great college football team. Not a good ACC team, but a great team. And most people have LSU in some capacity ranked inside their top 4 of college football programs in the SEC. So if they get a win, they get a win over a top 4 team in the SEC after last season going 0-3 against the SEC. But for LSU on the same token, you got to look at it from the perspective of Brian Kelly. He hasn't won a first game. He has yet to win a first game in 3 years at the program. Now, they've been close at times, but there's a standard set in Baton Rouge. There is certainly an expectation made by the fan base. And when you have all the resources and the booster club is writing you blank checks to go out and add in X player here or go land a defense coordinator or build your coaching staff in a certain process, that adds more fuel to the already exhausting fire that is, you have got to be able to get us to the college football playoff. So, in my opinion, both these teams face massive uphill battles in this game, which I think adds more validity to the matchup. Not to say that Ohio State and Texas doesn't have its own storylines. Again, we have Lee Corso's headgear, the beginning of the Arch Manning era. You have now a bunch of new players starting off for a defending national champion team. But when you think about the old school stakes of college football, what we're going to get in Death Valley 2.0 is certainly, I think, having a lot more validity than what we're going to get in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Absolutely. Before I let you go, I want to have you look into your crystal ball, and when everything shakes out in December, who is the best team in the SEC? Is it Texas? Is it Georgia? Is it somebody else?
It's Alabama. I truly believe it will be Alabama. And I think that's because of the way that Alabama went about its offseason this year is the exact same way Ohio State went about its offseason last year. Like, people focused in on the $20 million. You heard it. I heard it. They went out and they spent $20 million on the transfer portal. And then you look at the transfer portal class, you're like, the math isn't mathing. This guy is not worth $6 million to where you can get $20 million. So what they did was they bought back the players that were looking to go pro. There was about a dozen or so names that all had top 100 grades by the NFL draft. And the boosters sat them down and said, what is it going to take to bring you back for one more year for us to feel like that we can use you as a foundation en route to winning a national title? And they met the offer. They all came back. They brought in Chip Kelly, who was a name that was very well sought after by Ryan Day for the last 2 years. They made sure that they paid Jim Knowles as the highest paid defense coordinator in college football. And lo and behold, they won a national title. They lost 2 games to 2 teams, one of which was undefeated and one of which was a rival in the regular season. They proceeded to beat up on everybody en route to winning their first title since 2014. Alabama did the exact same thing this offseason. There were about a dozen or so players that had either top 100 grades or were getting substantial offers from other programs in NIL packages to leave this offseason. And Courtney Morgan sat them down and said, what is it going to take for us to make sure that you are the foundation to help us win a national title next year? They met the offers. They went on the portal. They got some small names, but some very promising names that were going to add not just depth, but also experience to a roster that was missing some elements. They brought back Ryan Grubb, who was a staple of Kalen DeBoer's offense in 2021, 2022, and 2023 at Fresno State and Washington. They got a quarterback that they felt like is perfect for the system. And the defense last year was the backbone of the team that didn't really lose a lot. They had a top 3 recruiting class, and they had yet again enough in the portal to feel like that the depth of this team is not going to be a problem like at other schools. So you add all that together, it just feels like Alabama has everything going its way. And you don't even need Ty Simpson to be this elite player. Like, the quarterbacks that we talk about in Alabama football history, Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, they were reckonings. They were, special talents. They also didn't win national titles single-handedly. They were more so known for their individual accolades. The quarterbacks that we think of most of the time with Alabama, Mac Jones, A.J. McCarron, Jake Coker, Greg McElroy. You could even probably throw in like John Parker Wilson. They were game managers. That's all you need from Ty Simpson to be successful. And that's not to say that, again, Tua Tagovailoa did win a national title. But the quarterbacks that usually you think of down in Tuscaloosa, just be the perfect point guard. You do that, you're going to win a title. I think that's what Alabama has at its disposal.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, we're writing it down. Alabama is the team we're watching, the SEC. And one of the teams, like you said, in action here this weekend, a big game for them down in Tallahassee. Cole, always great to talk with you, man. Try to get some sleep. We're just starting a long season. We want to make sure you're there at the end.
I think I've told you this multiple times, Larry. I will sleep in December, which is actually going to be a lie because of I will sleep in January, which also is now going to be a lie because of I just found out my niece is going to be born today. So I'm very excited to meet her for the first time. And my brother said, hey, when you're done with football season, Mom and Dad got to go on a vacation. So enjoy a 6-month-old. So I will sleep when I'm dead. How about that? We're going to go on that line from here on out because that's probably more of a reality.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Uncle Cole. We'll call you that from now on. And we look forward to seeing the pictures online or wherever. And hopefully we can get a chance to talk with you soon. Always appreciate your insights, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Larry. Take care.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Cole Thompson, once again, of SEC Unfiltered. Like I said, at the very top, he is truly one of the best, and we're thrilled to have him here on the show today. And congratulations. By the way, if you see him on the street, call him Uncle Cole. He'll love that. All right. More Sports IQ on the way next.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293.
Hey, welcome back here to the show. Continue our countdown of the preseason top 25 as we get ready for the weekend. Producer Tony has spent time crafting and creating and cooking and mixing and doing all the things to prepare this month-long feast for us. And today's serving is number 4. So, Chef Tony, sir, who do you have?
We are serving up some Longhorn for number 4, some nice Longhorn steak for number 4. Texas is the number 4 team going in. Larry, there's not much keeping this team from being the number 1 team in the country. There really isn't. Steve Sarkisian, to his credit, has brought this team back. They are no longer in a spot where, okay, we've got to rebuild. Man, they just reload. So they lose Quinn Ewers. They lose Matthew Golden on offense. They lose 4 or 5 offensive starters, yet they could be just as good. There's no reason to think they might not. Arch Manning is the most heralded recruit of the last probably 5 to 7 years, right? 5-star, that pedigree in that family, the Manning name, what it carries. It's just going to be, can he come in and pick up where Ewers left off? Can he be at least that good, if not somewhat better? He's had a couple of starts in his career, which should help him, but he still hasn't had the whole weight of the offense on his shoulders like he's going to have this year.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny that, remember when he was being recruited out of high school? Of course, he's a Manning and he's got the pedigree and all the things you just mentioned. And even then, the family said, we're fine sitting and waiting. So to me, I can't wait to see him. I mean, he's done a great job when he's come in and spot play and made a couple of, some starts here and there. While the starter Quinn Ewers was injured. Now it's his team, and I can't wait to see. It's rare to see a kid of his pedigree sit and wait for 2 years, but he's done that.
Yeah, exactly. Most 5-stars come in, they want to play right away. If they don't play by the 6th game of their freshman year, they're looking for their way out, right? But not Arch Manning. He knew he was going to sit. The family knew he was going to sit, and they were fine with it. And he's learned. He's picked it up. Now he's got to see if he can carry that offense. And he should get some help on the defensive side of the ball because they're going to be strong again. As we said, they're going to reload. They're not going to rebuild. Couple of transfers in the portal, Travis Shaw and Cole Brevard have come in to kind of help strengthen that defensive line, which lost a ton of talent. If those transfers can amalgamate into the team quickly, they're going to be fine. Now the schedule, that didn't do Sarkisian and Texas any favors with this schedule. You're going to go to Ohio State this week. Man, that's going to be just a great game. Then they get 3 tune-ups, which is fine. But then they got to go to the Swamp and play Florida the week before the Red River game versus Oklahoma. That's a trap game for Texas. Anytime you're going to play your main rival that week before, if you're playing a decent team, that is a classic trap ball game. Then in November, they're going to close at Georgia, at home versus Arkansas, and home versus Texas A&M. Those are some tough games right there. I think they could end up losing 2 games over the course of the season and still be in the hunt for a first-round bye.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And I think that, like you said, you get Ohio State, the defending champs, right off the top. Too bad that Quinn Ewers isn't still here. Quinn Ewers began his career as a Buckeye, took the NIL money and ran after 1 semester. So, which was, I still think was highway robbery, but you know what? It's legal, so it's not robbery. But you're exactly right. I think this is a team that the SEC is always tough, but give Texas credit. They didn't wait for the SEC mandate, 2026 of going out and playing a tough opponent. It gets no tougher than Ohio State, right? A great out of conference matchup there. Should be a lot of fun. I'm with you. I think we're going to see not only this year, but in the coming years, why Steve Sarkisian had very little interest in the Alabama job when it came open. Because as we've talked with, Cole Thompson, and, we've talked with Cole here, he said before, Texas produces more millionaires each year than Alabama does. So the money's going to be flowing deep, and he's got this thing rolling right now. Why change? There's no reason to change. Texas is number 4. All right, producer Tony, appreciate that. We'll do number 3 tomorrow. Our moment of awe is up next.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-215-0341. 800-215-0341. 800-215-0341. That's 800-215-0341.
Truly a moment of awe over the weekend. The MJ Kobe Logo Man card sold at auction for a record $12.9 million, the most expensive sports card in the world. And the buyers now revealing themselves. One of them is Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank. $12.932 million. I want to be exact on that. Again, it's the MJ Kobe Logo Man card. O'Leary telling CNBC he doesn't expect to sell this in his lifetime. They're not trying to make a return on investment on that. So there you go. Honest Wagner, stand aside. Doesn't matter. You're no longer it. Moment of awe. $12.932 million. Wow. Hey, thanks to Peter Holland. Thanks to Cole Thompson. Thanks to you as well for coming by. It's a Sports IQ. Make it a great Tuesday, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.